for a minute. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we basically, for him, the primary use of the e-collar is gonna be for the come command, obviously, and then obviously general corrections for behavioral issues. So if he does jumping or, you know, barking at dogs, things like that, right? So basically the first step of introducing the e-collar into any of this kind of stuff is getting him to associate that sensation with doing something, right? So in this case, because we're primarily from an obedience standpoint going to be using it for the come command, I want him to associate this pressure with turning in my direction, right? So what we got to do here first is we got to figure out what his working level on this thing is going to be. So basically what that means is the first level we could tell that he's noticing, but isn't like terribly averse by. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at 0 on it. I'm going to go up, give a tap, go up, give a tap until I see some sort of sign that he's noticing that sensation. From there, that'll give us a reference point of where we need to start. So right about there. So that was about a 25 out of 100, so in that general range. So we'll start a little bit lower. We'll start at about a 15 here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start walking him around this room here. I'm gonna stay nice and loose on my leash, and anytime I feel like I'm losing him here, what I'm gonna do is give a tap on the e-collar and then a little bit of leash guidance towards me, and I want him to associate that that tap and that leash pressure mean the same thing. So
question.
Yep.
So he goes for 2 walks.
Yep.
Every day in the morning and the evening. Mm-hmm. Do you want to use the e-collar if he sees a squirrel?
Not yet. We're not there yet. We got to introduce the pressure first. From there, we'll show you how to incorporate it into distractions and stuff.
As you can see, he's really bonded with it.
Yeah, definitely. So again, just walking around here. If I lose him, tap with the turn. There we go. Nice.
If you wish to do maybe a little buzz.
I've given 2 so far right at the beginning. That last one right there, he did on his own, which is what I want to start to see here, is as we do this, so right there, gave a tap. What we should start to see here is as I change direction, he shifts direction with me to avoid that correction. Like that's on his own right there. Good job, bud. Come on. Come on. Good job. Come on. Go work, buddy. Go work. Come. Good. So right now I'm good. Sorry.
Is it all right when he
Come.
When we put him in a sit stay, if we release him, we always say okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Terminology.
Yeah, so if you look at okay and come, right, they could be used like interchangeably, right? So like they both can be used to release the dog from a position. The only difference is okay simply means like you're free. You know, you can do anything. You don't have to come to me. You don't even have to technically get up out of that sit. Come is specific. I tell him come, and I expect that he actually comes to me, right? So yeah, you just have to ask yourself, what's the expectation in that moment, you know?
You can see that somebody's working.
Come. Oh, definitely. He picks this stuff up fast. Good job. Come. So right now all I'm doing is just kind of testing him a little bit with this. So a lot of quick changes in direction and stuff, just making sure he's staying focused on me.
You know, we have that fast cat.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had that normally he would go right up to
Yep.
our assistant there.
Yep.
But he's not doing that.
We worked through some of that with him already, obviously. So try to give him a little bit more slack on that leash. With this, we don't want to hold it too tight because we want to give him the opportunity to go off and try to check other things out so that we can address it, obviously.
Okay, how's that?
That's perfect.
By the way, he's fast.
I believe it.
He's real fast. He's faster than body than me.
Yeah.
Of course, he's a little chunky when we got him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what we're gonna do next here is we're gonna take him out in the parking lot real quick, do the same thing with some more distractions and see how he does with that. Come on, buddy. So you can follow me this way. Same deal, you'll notice I'm nice and loose on this leash here, making those turns, wanting to see him turn with me. Now how this starts to correlate with some of the dog reactivity you've seen is you could take these drills and you can start working on them in areas where there's going to be other dogs around and teaching him to shift his attention off to them and back onto you. From there, the only variable that there is if your level is high enough to meet that distraction. So you would then adjust your level on this if he was too fixated on those dogs to perform it. Good job.
Well, lately he has, if he draws his focus away from me on the other dog.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and this is the same concept as that. We're just using a sensation that he's going to care a little bit more about. Good work, buddy.
Is there such a thing as leash aggression?
I mean, yeah, so leash aggression can look like a lot of things, right? And most times it's not really aggression, it's like an aggressive looking display, you know? So leash reactivity, we typically will call it, is just like a frustrated response that the dog is having to a specific trigger, right? Typically speaking, it's dogs, right? Sometimes it's with people, sometimes it's with bikes, sometimes cars, you know? And a lot of times what it is not necessarily that the dog doesn't like that thing, but it's a frustrated response of them being on a leash, held back from something they want to get to, and that just like constantly, oh, I want to get to it, I want to get to it, I want to get to it, and just bottles up and just kind of explodes towards that thing, you know what I mean? So most commonly, that's what you're seeing when you see leash aggression, right, or leash reactivity, is that frustration that stems from the dog not understanding the barrier that's holding them back from the thing they want to get to. Yeah, so the biggest difference between the board and train and the one-on-ones is, you know, how much time you have to put into things. So, you know, with the one-on-one classes, obviously, those are once a week. You would come in, work with a trainer, then you'd be given homework assignments to work on in between, and your success is obviously dictated on how much work you put into it, right? The board and train program, we're doing a lot of that initial heavy lifting and doing a lot of that initial teaching so that you could then take over once the dog already knows everything and then learn how to use that training as opposed to teach that training. So it's more so on which one's going to be better for you, less which one's better for the dog. No, that makes complete sense. And those are just training related issues. So, you know, I always say we've rarely ever met a dog that doesn't like kind of know their basic commands, you know, but the problem is they know them well enough as far as like if there's something in it for them, you know, they'll do it basically, right? But the second that they get put in a situation where the distractions are a little bit higher, or they would rather, you know, get to one of you guys or get to another dog or whatever it may be, it all kind of goes out the window because the foundations of those commands aren't established well enough, right? Our communication isn't clear enough where we can communicate with him through all of that noise, right? So everything kind of starts with that foundation of training, but that's only 50% of the problem, right? So 50% of the problem is the communication side of things. You guys guys learning how to get him to do things and perform things better. From there, it's you guys understanding best practices as far as socializing him and best practices as far as improving his tolerance to other dogs and what he's going to need from you guys in order to be successful. And as far as our individual program options that we have, every one of them is going to go over all of those details. Like I was kind of explaining, it really comes down to which one is going to fit your guys' lifestyle the best as far as, you know, most efficient means of getting from point A to point B, as far as like the board and train versus the one-on-one classes. Breaks the sit. And you don't have to worry about even saying anything with it. So, right there. Sit. Right, tell them no. Tap one. Still tap it. There you go.
I don't want to do an 80.
That's okay. So that's what we're, just like last time, that's what we're looking for, is the second he breaks command. And the interesting thing, and this is actually a positive, is we're seeing him do the opposite of what he used to do, right? So he used to get stressed, get insecure, lunge, and resort to fight, right? Now we're seeing him get stressed, and then create distance, right? Which is actually significantly better because he's realizing there's consequences for his decisions. So that's awesome. So now we just got to address that last little bit of it there, just acting on it in general. We want you acting on this, period. So, what's new?
Did our walks. So he was pretty good. We're still kind of trying to figure out like where to maybe have that middle of the walk break to kind of release him, let him pee and sniff around. We kind of found one area, but then it's like city owned and the grass was so high, so I didn't want him there. But he was doing pretty good, like staying with us. And,
on the walk.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then our brother-in-law came over. How was he when he dropped him?
He was pretty good when he got there. I mean, I put him on his bed, and he had that initial big reaction of wanting to come off the bed, and because he always wants to run up to the door.
Sure.
So I brought him back on the bed, and I told Rob, like, okay, just come walk in towards him. He stayed on the bed, and then I had kind of him go to different areas, like sit on the couch. He stayed on the bed, and I gave him the okay to walk down, and just to see if he would like walk by and stuff, and then I gave him the bed command again and had him move around a little bit, and he stayed on the bed then, but it's still that initial first reaction.
Yeah, I mean, this is, since you started training, is this really the first big time you've had somebody come over to test it though?
Yeah, the one time her family came over, like mom and sister, but we didn't, she just
and you said he likes them or something?
Oh, he loves them.
Yeah.
And they just kind of showed up and we didn't have the e-collar on or anything.
Yep, I got you. Well, here's the thing. So you handled it pretty much correct, and you know the other thing too with it is like first time doing it like that with somebody that he doesn't really know, he's gonna be apprehensive about. He's gonna have that first initial reaction. It's inevitable, you know. And probably the next 2 times you go to do it, he'll probably have the first initial response, just like when you guys first started coming here, you know. And you address it and handle it exactly like we're doing right now, and you'll see it continue to get less and less, just like we're seeing with him now, right? Now the only thing I would say is, you don't have to get as crazy with testing it and stuff, right? So like when they get there, knock, knock, put them on the bed. From there, have your guests come in and just have them go about their business, you know, do whatever they need to do, and just have them hold the bed like pretty much the whole time, you know? And don't worry about releasing, putting back on, releasing, putting back on. Just have them just stay there, you know?
He came back in the house because they were working outside.
Yep.
With his baby, and we had him on the bed. But then for us, it's like we couldn't interact because we were worried about him, so we ended up just putting him in the crate.
Which is fine, you know. And if they're going to be there for a while, you know, it's one of those things where use the initial as a good training opportunity. Then yeah, put them away so you guys don't have to worry about it, obviously, right? So that I don't have an issue with that at all either, you know. I'm the same way with like when you get into like going places with your dog. Like you're going to start hitting a point here soon where you can start taking them to stores and places and this and that. But like if you're going somewhere, like everybody wants to take their dog to a patio, right? And it's like, okay, well we could take him to a patio and he probably would be fine. But it's like, you know, do you really want to have to be in like training mode the whole time you're there, or do you want to go there and like enjoy yourself, right? So you have to look at the scenario and be like, is this a training situation, or am I trying to just do my own thing and not have to worry about him? And then you assess if you have him out or not based on that, you know? Don't feel like an obligation or pressure to need to have him out the whole time either, you know? Yeah. We just got to start pushing the threshold a little bit, you know, and starting to get him moving along in the correct direction, so. Anything else?
Initial reaction when that door knocked.
Yeah, he's just so used to, like, even when we come home, you know, he would run, like if I'm home and she comes home, he runs up to her right away.
Yeah, and again, that's normal, right? So like my wife, when she's home and I get home from work, the dogs like charge the gate, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, somebody's here, who is it, you know? Like, so unless I'm asking for a command, I don't care, right? If he's in command, right, and he breaks command because of that, that's a different story, right? That's where we really get on him over it. But past that, no, I don't, you know, when he's not in command, he's allowed to be excited and go run over there, you know?
So if we know people that he likes that are coming over, we don't necessarily have to.
Well,
or is that a good time to train?
No, so I try to keep my routine consistent. Listen, if it's just like me or my wife, that's one thing, right? But if we're gonna have guests come over the house, you don't wanna go into the battle of like 50% of the time we do bed stay, 50% of the time we don't do bed stay for a couple of reasons, right? One, that's an inconsistent routine, so it makes it harder for him to be successful with it. Where if it's 100% of the people that come over, initially for the first 10 minutes we put you on the bed, that's a concrete routine that, you know, no matter what in his mind, this is what I'm going to do. So he's going to start reverting to it on his own a little bit more easily, right? The other thing too is then you start creating this contrast between like some people are scary, some people are good, and we're kind of triggering him differently based on that, you know what I mean? And then the third reason, and arguably one of the most important, is that arousal and excitement, like that uncontrollable arousal and excitement, sometimes can be harder to channel and control than the fear, you know what I mean? So I look at that as like a bigger distraction, which is even more the reason why I want to work through it, you know? So keep those things in mind with it too. So, but yeah, I mean, you just got to keep doing it, right? And continue enforcing your bed state and continue having your e-collar high for it and stuff like that. And you'll see that continue to improve. But for first time, it sounds like you were able to get him to hold it and he was good with it. So
when the one time they came over a second time, actually, her parents, your mom and sister, remember? And I had the e-collar and I shot them the one time.
Did nothing.
Must not have been high enough.
Sure.
So the second time he came back.
Yiked him back to
Yep, and that's like we talked about last time, just starting higher for those things, you know, so. But that's good. I mean, you're starting to see more real life situations and, you know, it's different. Like I said, like people get just as distracted as dogs do sometimes, and sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's harder for us to be like, oh shit, we're supposed to do this, you know, and it's just different than when you're in a training session. Right. So the fact that you're experiencing those things and you're seeing, all right, well, I got to do this a little different next time, or I got to do this a little bit different next time, that's good. That's a part of the process. So I mean, that all sounds positive to me. That sounds good.
He's really good when we see other dogs on the walks now.
Yeah, cool.
He'll do
I think your mom's coming over tomorrow.
Yep.
And your brother's Thursday, so.
Just indefinite, right? 10-minute bed stay when anybody comes over the house.
We should have him
minimum.
On the leash right now still?
Yeah, just in case you need to take him back, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're not quite finished with the come command, so we're going to finish today here, you know, so once that's established, you can start doing it off leash, but until then, yeah, you want that leash on. Okay. Just like a backup.
Because if he jumps off, we can just say no and then
correct him, walk him back, yep. So, cool. Anything else? All right, let's go ahead and take them all in this way.
Okay.
Okay, awesome, looks pretty good. So now that he's doing pretty good with that, what we're gonna do next is we're gonna start combining some of these commands a little bit. So I'm gonna start working, putting him onto a bed and then doing a recall off of it. So we'll start with the bed stay here. Riggins bed. Good. No. Bed. Good. So once I get him onto the bed, just have him hold that for a minute or so. As we start doing this with the combining commands, this is where you really can start confusing the dog if you move too quick with stuff. So you'll notice that I'm gonna work really slow. Once I put him into that bed, I'll really let him just kind of chill there for a little bit and settle into position. And then there's a couple of other little variables we add in when we start doing this kind of stuff that I'll explain as we go. While he's holding that bed, I'm gonna try to avoid like stopping and just staring at him. Things like that can be very inviting and kind of imply that I want him to come to me. So try to break that habit. You can check in with him obviously, but try to just kind of act natural, kind of keep some motion going. Whenever I want to call him, what I'll do is I'll pick a spot, come to a stop, give that come command, and just give him a minute or so to kind of figure it out. It's pretty common that on the first couple, they don't get up on the first one because, you know, anytime in the past he's broken a bed stay, he's gotten a correction for it, obviously. So we'll see what we get here.
And it's a different release, right? It's from...
Well, it's not a release, yeah, so okay is a release, obviously, meaning that he's just totally free to do whatever. In this case, we're releasing him with another command. Yes. So when I tell him come, yeah, there's gonna be specific meaning to what he needs to do, so it's different for him. Yep. Riggins, come. And he actually did pretty good that time. Now, let's say hypothetically he did not get up on that one, right? This is the one place that we have like an exception to our rule of repeating commands. So if I call my dog out of a stationary position with a come command, whether that's a sit, a down, a bed, any number of those types of things, if they hesitate on the first one, I'll give one extra come command. The reason for that is because we're always correcting for being too jumpy off of the bed. So since we're doing that, I'm not also gonna confuse him by correcting for being not jumpy enough off of the bed, right? Okay, from there I'll tell him okay. We go all the way back over to the bed. He doesn't have to follow me at this point because he's free, right? Once I get next to the bed, Riggins bed, I'll give that command. And then I like to wait with them until the dog completely stabilizes before I go to walk away. Same deal. If you tell him bed and he's like in the process of getting on and I'm running the other way, that can get confusing for them, so.
To work up to off leash?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're working on right now. This is off leash training, you know. Off leash to me is, you know, do we have the ability to communicate with the dog whether they have the leash on or not, you know? Can we get them to perform all of the behaviors that we need if they don't have the leash on?
Now with him, because of his reactions to people and animals, would you ever have him walking off leash?
Yeah, I mean, that's dependent on a lot of factors, right? Number one being your guys's, you know, skill set continuing to improve, you know what I mean? Because sure, yeah, if this were my dog, I'm sure that we can get him to a place where he could walk off leash and be around tons of distractions and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty confident that you guys could get there as well, but your timing with things is gonna need to get like perfect, right? Because here's the thing, there's, you know, with any dog you work with, forget a reactive dog or a fearful dog or any dog, right? When you start doing off-leash stuff with them, they're gonna start trying shit, right? Whether it's, oh, there's a squirrel over there I really wanna go to. Oh, there's a dog over there I really wanna go to. Oh, there's a person over there I really wanna go to. Any number of those things, right? And you have to be prepared to encounter those things and know how to address them like that, right? And when you're doing true off-leash stuff, those things can come out of nowhere, you know what I mean? There's one time I was walking off-leash in the woods and suddenly there's a buck like 20 feet away from us, right? And they were off-leash, right? Like there was no like, oh, I can just put the leash on real quick. It's like suddenly it's there, right? So you need to feel confident that in those scenarios, you could react accordingly and address that scenario the second it happens, right? There's no amount of preparation you're gonna do leading up to off-leash stuff that's just gonna be like, check, your dog is perfect off-leash, you know what I mean? So short answer, yeah, I'm sure you could get there. Long answer, it's gonna take some time for you guys to get there. Riggins, come. Nice. Bed. Good.
Now, what if it was in this sit and you bring it to, like, over towards bed, and just, before you even say, you always want to make sure you say that command if you, like, notice he's gonna just go up there? Or?
Yeah, I just try to say it right before. Because like I'm not trying to get him. Like if I'm standing right next to that bed, I'm not going to be like, come, and then like force him to stop next to me, then get on the bed, you know? Again, it's not technically wrong, but it's like you start making this stuff more and more increasingly challenging for the dog. They start becoming less and less successful with it, and they lose confidence in it. You know what I mean? So that's why we kind of make some of these rules of like, if I'm within 5 feet of that bed, I'm typically only ever going to ask him to get onto the bed, right? So yeah, I'll just try to, so that it's not wrong, just say bed right before he gets on, you know? Riggins, come. He did really, really good today. A little difficult initially with the come command, but he worked through it and he was phenomenal after that. So I'm very, very pleased with how all that went with him.
Yeah.
So
The beginning was.
yeah. That's always the hardest part, you know, is when we get to that place where they really realize like that leash is not on them and their #1 go-to is hide, right? And you got, that's one of the most important parts to work them past, because you see as soon as we did it, right, and as soon as you realized it's just not working, you saw how much better he was, you know? And it's interesting, like he's ending like looking pretty confident, looking pretty peppy and stuff like that. And, you know, as we take away some of those options when they get that scared, that's where we really see them start to open up a little bit more, you know? It like starts to like erased from the back of their mind. Like I could resort to run and hide next to mom and dad and then defensive when people approach, you know? So that was really good. Do you guys have any questions on any of that?
I don't think so.
Walking, we're still doing.
Keep plugging away with your walking as normal, just how you guys have been enforcing it. Start adding these drills into things, and then your bed stay with people coming over, keep trying to push that.
So do you want us to just get right into the bed, come sit?
Work a couple of off-leash come commands first, make sure it looks good. From there, yes, you could. Any big issues with anything that we worked on?
I mean, he's watching us around. Kids are kids.
Yep.
You know, not great with them, but trying to keep them separated.
Yeah. Now, when you say he's not great with the kids, is there anything in particular he does?
If they, like at first, he would be around them, but
Yeah.
they try to nip at them.
Okay, I gotcha.
So try to keep them separated.
Yeah, and are these kids like? Sorry, good.
Go.
Are they like family members or?
Niece and nephew.
Yeah. And how often is Miso around them?
Not often. Probably
Not often.
once, yeah.
Oh, so really not that often at all. Yeah, that's tough, you know, because, you know, we could realistically like come up with a game plan of this is how we incrementally get Miso better with them and stuff like that. The problem is since there's so much time in between when he's around them, it's like you're constantly going to be playing this game of like get a little bit better, then like kind of come back, then get a little better, then come back. And it's like it's worth it to obviously keep improving on it, but it's also going to be something that's probably going to take a while before he really starts getting totally comfortable with them. And kids are weird because it's like, they're not like people where you could like instruct them quite as easily, you know what I mean? Or with like adults and stuff like that. So you're a little bit more kind of limited as far as how you do it, which is why I've always, like even with my personal dogs, like I got plenty of like young children in my family and stuff like that. And I kind of have this like general rule where like, unless my dog is a freaking social butterfly, there's not much of a reason why I need to have them around like younger children. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, if you're going to the lake house and you're taking Miso and stuff like that, obviously he's going to be around them, but it's going to be pretty limited to like he just like holds a bed stay while they're out hanging out, and then you give him breaks and things like that, and there's not a lot of interaction. Or you at least remove the expectation of the interaction, because that's the first step of getting him. Let's say hypothetically you had a kid, right, and we wanted to get Miso comfortable with this child. The first step would be a lot of time of just like holding a bed stay around the kid, right, to start socializing kind of from afar and hearing them and smelling them and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Getting used to them. And then you'll kind of naturally see as he's around them more in that controlled fashion without worrying about them coming and like messing with them and stuff like that. You'll just see him continue to like loosen up a little bit, loosen up a little bit, loosen up a little bit until he kind of starts to turn into like curiosity, you know? So just kind of keep that in mind with it, and keep your expectations with them like very low for right now, and just try to set those boundaries of if we want him to get better with them, right, he needs to be around them without feeling threatened. right? So you got to be very, very, very diligent about if you're going to have him out with them, there's boundaries set from both sides. You're not going to mess with them, they're not going to mess with you, and we're just going to manage this situation right now. And that's how you'll see that continue to get better, you know?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Past that, anything else?
There's a lot of golf there.
Yeah.
On our walks.
Sure.
Try to lunge at
the golf carts. Tough guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. And those couple adjustments we made on the walk last time, looser leash, a little bit higher with the corrections, stuff like that. Have you been kind of implementing those on the walk?
Yeah, and so he's been doing really well.
Yeah.
Beyond those just a couple instances. And I mean, even at the end of the weekend, I was just having him like sit when they passed, and that helped a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
look back.
Would he hold the sit, or would he break it when they would come by?
Mostly hold the sit.
Okay.
Like,
Sometimes he would break it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you corrected him when he broke it. Did it seem like he cared about the correction?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Cared enough about it? That's the missing link with a lot of this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? When it comes to like reactivity in particular, like it's always one of those things where once we have a couple of things that the dog knows how to do, right? Sit, heel, bed, this, that, whatever, right? It really is a matter of, is the dog incentivized enough to do that position around this trigger? You know what I mean? And you know, whether it's they really want what we have or want to avoid what it is that happens if they don't do it, right? Regardless, the reward or the consequence has to be motivating enough around that thing, right? And that's the number one problem that I see people make, is that especially around those high trigger items, they don't go high enough, you know? And you know, sometimes it's as simple as like, you know, like just understanding that like in some cases, like it's funny, I can't remember if this was last time with Misa or not, but we'll see a lot of dogs that'll work super low for 99% of things, like 10 is like more than enough, or like way too much or something like that. And then we'll see them on the flip side then around something like that need like an 80, right? And you just gotta start to read the dog really well to know when to increase preemptively before you run into that problem. Because a lot of the dogs we'll work with that have similar issues, whether it's dog reactivity, car reactivity, bike reactivity, any number of those things. Sometimes what I'll have them do is like when they go to the park for the first time, instead of starting in your normal range like you typically would, right? You would start in your higher range for the other things, and before you even see it, right? Let's say around golf carts he works at a 70, right? Hypothetically, right? And we go to the park, and typically at the park, not around those things, he works at a 20, right? Well, I would have you go there at like a 70 or an 80, right? Get out of your car, start walking, and your first correction you need to give, right? Whether it's, you know, reacting at something, or whether it's just he started to pull over to try to sniff something over there, you give it at that higher level, right? And what that does is immediately set the tone of the walk, right? It is perceived by the dog as a significantly more dramatic consequence that just right away, whoa, this is different. You know what I mean? That's kind of what we need, is that like, this is different kind of moment with the dog without the trainer present kind of thing, you know? So that they kind of shift into that state of mind of, okay, this is what we're doing right now. Then when you actually see the trigger, a lot of times the reaction is like 10 times less intense, which makes it easier then to suppress it the rest of the way. You know what I mean? So kind of keep those things in mind with it, and I would probably recommend experimenting with that a little bit.
Okay.
So.
It's just, I mean, it's funny, just like, sometimes I'm like, why is like this golf cart he doesn't care about, and then, so that's like, like having it ready.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And it's funny, because like sometimes it can get frustrating like that, where it does seem like kind of random, you know, where it's like, well, this one he was fine with, but this one he freaked out at. It's like, well, what's different about this one? And half the time, there was nothing different about it. It's just for whatever reason, it startled him more that time or something. You know what I mean? And the root of the problem really is like, he's just choosing, right? He's choosing. I like this dog, I don't like this dog. I like this golf cart, I don't like this golf cart, right? And we got to get him out of that mind of choosing. We are taking away those choices right now, right? You're no longer able to choose if you like the golf cart or don't like the golf cart. I am telling you, you don't need to worry about golf carts, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. And yeah, being prepared is everything with it also, because I'll also find people that they'll go for their walk, right? And it's like He'll be 15, 15, like everything's great, the walk is going good, I don't need a super high correction, and suddenly golf cart go by, oh shit, what do I do? Oh, I gotta turn the up, you know what I mean? It's like more of this scramble, frantic thing, where if you just go into it, I know he reacts at stuff sometimes. So what I'm gonna do is instead of keeping my level set to the low stuff, I'm gonna keep it set to the big stuff, and then if he makes a little mistake, I'll just turn down a little bit. You know what I mean? But I'm always ready for the big thing.